Is joining us as part of our roundtable segment today. Kirk, we're going to talk about movies and how they have been. We know Toledo, we know folks love to go out to the movies, but in this first part of our show today, before we get into talking about what the summer has been, what it has not, what we have to look forward to, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about those options that are out there. We've got the mud hens in the good months. We've got the walleye in the winter months. We've got great cultural opportunities for everybody around town. But Toledoans, I have lived here most of my life. Toledoans love to go out to eat and they love to see movies. But other than that, where do the entertainment dollars go, or where can they go? Do you see a void here in the Glass City for how people get to spend their entertainment dollar?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, the same kinds of questions and issues people have almost everywhere they live. There's certain, elements to,
even Detroit, even Chicago,
Detroit,
even Columbus.
It's just, oh, there's not enough to do. There's not kinds of stuff that I want to do.
Yeah.
And it's like anything, you have to sometimes seek it out. You can't just, I'll just, and again, Toledo's not Chicago where you just automatically know there's all this stuff going on.
Yeah.
You kind of have to look for it. As far as entertainment goes, I mean, like there's the Toledo Zoo concert series. That's always a lot of fun, and they try to mix it up.
Right.
The summer there's the Rib Off that's coming up, the Toledo Blade Rib Off. So there's lots of concert opportunities. The Huntington Center has a lot of good shows.
And that was one of the concerns, and we can go back in time, that was one of the concerns when that facility was first put together, was the worry that Toledo was going to get those B-list shows, and that just has not been the case, has it?
Well, I was going to say...
So?
Yeah, I would...
I mean, you bring in Michael Bublé, you bring in Lady A?
And yes, and as far as country and certain other kind of specialty acts, if you will, absolutely. But in terms of rock acts, they basically are getting, for the most part,
those
the
who have had their
retreads.
heyday.
Yeah, I mean, there are bands that are, like Journey, upcoming show in Journey. I mean,
right.
Is anyone really clamoring to see Journey at this point?
New frontman, but not the draw that Steve Perry brought to the table.
No, not at all. But I mean, and yeah, it's an interesting story with the new frontman, and it kind of makes it a compelling reason to go see the show. But
and
still.
A great Netflix documentary on it, by the way. I want to point that out, that you can find. And we will talk more about Netflix in just a second. But as far as that dollar that's being spent, when you look at the venues that are available, obviously right up your alley and talking about movies, and we'll get into the summer fair in just a minute, but over the years, having grown up here, the decades go by, and we've kind of gotten a dwindled, I guess, selection of where we go, what we see, where we see it, and how much we're paying for it. And that's a lot of that has to do with consolidation of companies. And have you seen that as a good thing or a bad thing, seeing companies like Rave come in and then seeing Cinemark come in and take over things? And obviously National Amusements dropped a lot of money into venues here in the Toledo region only to see those kind of go up in smoke.
Well, that's the big issue with these kinds of things, with the consolidations. I mean, in terms of movie theaters, I was here for a little bit for National Amusements, and they had an interesting idea, different concepts. At one point they had a dedicated art house theater. They shut it down and thought, okay, well, we'll just show. We'll have like a couple of screens that will just play art movies.
Yeah.
So that's what they did, and everyone's kind of subsequently Rave and now Cinemark have kind of continued that tradition. I would love to see a competitor come in.
Yeah.
I think it would be kind of good. Certainly, maybe it might help with ticket prices a little bit. It might challenge them in terms of what are we going to screen in Toledo? Maybe we should bring in more art films.
Do you think that's legit? And I want to, as far as the challenging of ticket prices, and I do want to mention too, Southwick Cinemas, back when Southwick was in its heyday, AMC owned those theaters, and they actually split off 3 of their theaters, one of those to just be kind of an art house thing. So that wasn't new to the region at all to have that. But do you really see bringing in a competitor company as bringing those prices down? Because as you and I discussed before we ever started out here, we like to take our family out to see a movie. We like to be able to do that on the weekends, but it has gotten increasingly expensive to the point of not doing it because of the cost. As you and I were talking, $10, you take a family of 4 out, You're paying $40, and I'm being nice. You're paying $40 for tickets, and then as you say, throw in concessions, you could be hitting the 60 range.
Oh yeah, and 3D movies, it's going to go up from there. No, it's crazy. I mean, it's just for a 2-hour slice of entertainment. I mean, it's out of hand. Personally,
Yeah.
And frankly, I go to movies for free.
Right.
But if I didn't, I wouldn't be going to all these movies.
Honestly.
Honestly, I mean, I couldn't afford it.
Right.
Most people can't.
Yeah.
But I think if there's a competitor, they may not drop the ticket prices, across the board significantly, but they might have more specials. They might be willing to say, like, I think Cinemark has like a Tuesday special or something like that. I know that's when a lot of people like to go. So maybe there might be more opportunities like that for families. But until then, I mean, the only way things are going to change, and it's just like with voting and everything else, is for consumers to kind of revolt and say, you know what, we're not going to do this anymore. And that's kind of what we're seeing already with this summer. Summer box office ticket sales are down 20% from last year.
Yeah.
Which is that's huge. So you got to think at some point, Hollywood's going to start paying attention. Well, maybe we should sort of change the paradigm in terms of what we're going to do, our summer film schedule, and also maybe theater owners, theater companies will say, you know what, we've got to figure out ways to get more people in, so we need to kind of address this idea of our ticket price is too expensive.
Yeah, the city of Toledo, and we invited some members of the city of Toledo to come on, Matt Sapara specifically, and it just didn't work out with his schedule, but I did get a chance to talk with him conversation-wise and discuss with him where the city is headed when it comes to the entertainment dollar and how far up the totem pole that is in pecking order, and making sure that's important for the city planners, those who are trying to develop these places for people to spend their entertainment dollar. And, there are ideas out there floating downtown of making a little Broadway section of downtown Toledo for theater goers, but that's not going to keep everybody going out there. Do you ever see us getting back to the days? Franklin Park Cinemas obviously have a theater. They're on the grounds. We had one, and we've always had that nearby. There was the Franklin Park Cinemas on Monroe Street. Northtown Mall had cinemas. Southwick Mall had cinemas. Some say those were downfalls for those malls. But do you see us needing to add more theaters around town? Because we've seen them not succeed. We saw Spring Meadows knock down their super cinemas and make way for a furniture venue there. And we've seen what happened. There is a church now inside the Maumee Cinemas, where National Amusements had a huge, huge theater complex there. Do we need it, or are we seeing the tail play out in front of us?
Well, okay, so kind of a personal anecdote. Some friends of mine from high school came up with this idea back in Texas of starting a chain of theaters in which they'd serve, alcohol and food. Huge. They eventually sold it to an investor, and now they're retired millionaires. Good for them. But I would love to see a similar concept in Toledo, and I think it could work. I really do. But also, as part of that, if you're going to open up a theater, I mean, you need to do something different, because otherwise people are going to go to the mall. They're going to go see what they know. So you're going to have to find a different. You're going to have to find a location that's attractive to people. You're going to have to have different offerings to attract people, whether it's ticket prices, whether it's the novelty of serving alcohol and food, or whether it's, hey, we're showing movies that no one else is showing.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of concept, I think that could work in Toledo. It'll be a struggle, for sure.
Is our culture just changing? Because, I mean, this usually, growing up, when we were growing up, I mean, it was a big deal. Friday, Saturday night, family would go out to the movies. It's not happening every week. It's not happening every month anymore.
Yeah, and again, it's funny. I did a story on several months ago about the lack of art house films in Toledo, and I was going through the Blade archives, and I found this picture. I can't remember what the theater was. I think it may have been Southwick, when it opened in the '60s, and he saw people sort of dressed to the nines, suit and ties, and
big night out.
Women exactly dresses, and it was like back when people used to get dressed up when they would fly.
Right.
That kind of mentality. It was a special event. Now that's not the case. It's just very much. Just part of our everyday experience.
Right.
We don't think of it as terms of special. It's just like, oh, let's just go to the movies, that kind of thing.
We're going to talk more about Netflix in our second segment, but how do you see that changing? Video streaming, Apple TV, all of these options for people at home, basically creating their own cinema at home. Now, mind you, they're not getting those first releases there at home, unless they want to pay for them, because we've seen those have been made available at times. But how do you see that changing the paradigm?
Well, there was always talk of the videotape that's going to kill movies. Then it was DVD, and to a lesser degree Blu-ray, and now streaming. That's not really changing the paradigm of movies, because when you want to see Transformers, and God help you if you do, you want to see it, you want to experience the bad movie in the best way possible,
yeah.
Which is on the big screen. And I don't care what kind of home system you've got, it can't compare to the theater.
Yeah.
That's always been my argument about theaters versus home theaters. It's the experience, and it's also the sense of community. Mm-hmm. It's the act of seeing a movie with everyone around you. And that does help. That does kind of play into it. It's just like seeing a play. If you were the only one to see a play, in the audience.
Golf clap.
Yeah, exactly. It would be like, well, it's not special. It just kind of feels kind of odd and awkward. And that's kind of the way I feel about seeing movies at home. Streaming, it's convenient, it's a lot of fun, certainly it's a lot cheaper, and gives you access to a variety of films that you can't see in your local theater. But still, there is something to be said about paying your $13 for the big budget blockbuster in 3D on the big screen.
But you're almost watching, you're going to the internet and checking to see when those release dates are, because you're making it that event. You may not be getting dressed up for it, but you're looking and you're thinking, okay, that's one that I want to see in the theater, specifically this movie. That kind of mentality.
Yeah, and that's what Hollywood's programming. That's all the summer tent poles. That's exactly what Hollywood's doing. They say, all right, fine. People aren't, the small dramas, people will, I'll just Netflix that. That's not a big deal.
Right.
And then I'm not, distracted by people, on their cell phone, crying kids, talkers, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But the summer blockbusters, that's what draws people. That's what gets people into the theaters.
Stay right there. When we come back, we're going to continue this discussion, talk a little bit about what our options have been at the theaters over the last couple of weeks here. Summer blockbusters aren't what they used to be. Stay with us.